I'm Riley Evan Ross. Doug Sorocco is one of those folks that a lot of people seem to know. I don't know if it's because I moved away from the city during a pivotal decade in our development or what, but he pretty much flew under my radar until last May 2018 when I heard him give an incredible Ignite talk on the importance of providing a free community space that he does at Dunlap Codding. If the name Doug Sorocco gets mentioned in conversation, it's always with great affection and reverence for what he does here in Oklahoma City. Thing is, he's not even from here. He's from South Bend.
And I remember driving out. I mean, I think we literally said, who in God's name would ever live here?
Right.
And then 6 years later, I'm moving to Oklahoma.
We cover a lot of territory in this conversation. For one, as a director and shareholder in Dunlap Codding, we have a high-level conversation about their business model and what it means to have DC headquartered here in the state.
Folks that I could name, we work with Nestle out of Switzerland or Johnson & Johnson or Siemens and, companies like that have realized that we can do just as good a quality work here and be at a lower cost because of our things in Oklahoma cost less, right?
Right.
People don't really know a lot about Oklahoma.
No.
It's still kind of a mystery. Mm-hmm. So most of the time I can get an appointment with people overseas because I just have to say, hey, my name's Doug, I'm from Oklahoma. I'd like to come talk to you. And they're like, oh, I've never talked to anybody. And
we also get to talk about community and intentionality.
I think intentionality is a good way to put it, mm-hmm. is that, there are people here of extreme goodwill doing lots of neat things all over the place. The more involved that I'm in things, the more it seems to kind of become an intentional act of this is where I want to make a difference, or this is how I want to impact the community around me.
This is Y'all Okay. Howdy, friends and neighbors. Welcome to Y'all Okay, the podcast about the great state of Oklahoma and the people connected to it. I hope you're well. It is May, so I hope that neither the allergies nor the tornadoes will bother you too bad right now. This is the last official episode of the quote-unquote season. This one has been coming for a while. I think I interviewed Doug last August or September, so it's been a while. And I'm just now pumping this bad boy out. So yeah. Doug is a really great guy. He's super involved in the community, and he encourages the folks at his firm to be involved in the community. He opens up his space to allow for the growth of nonprofits and the growth of creatives in the city, and he recognizes the key that they play to creating a thriving community here. We'll have a special episode coming soon. I said this is the last one. We'll have a special one coming soon. It's a live podcast taping from Rodeo Cinema after a viewing of the Bikes of Wrath, which is a documentary about 5 guys from Australia that ride their bikes from Sallisaw to Bakersfield that's playing across the country right now in select theaters. Oklahoma City was lucky enough to have one on the anniversary, I think the 80th or 85th anniversary of the Grapes of Wrath that inspired this journey. I'm really excited about that episode. I look forward to bringing that one to you. Speaking of Doug and live events, as I wrap up this season, I've had a lot of folks on that I met at last year's Ignite event. And the reason is because Ignite does a great job of putting together a show of interesting people and interesting topics with a specific point of view. So in this season, folks like Meredith Van Sant, Madison Schultz, Apollo, Doug, all these folks are really doing it and living out the values that they shared on stage. The 2019 Ignite event is coming up, and it looks to be amazing. It's on May 30th at the Chickasaw Bricktown Ballpark. There will be talks about Oklahoma City, building community, gut bacteria, bicycling, raising your kids, business, shame and racism. We're really covering a lot of territory this year. Tickets are $25. I'll put a link in this episode's show notes. Or you can do a search on Facebook for Ignite OKC 12 or on Eventbrite. You could go to the Ignite page, the Ignite OKC page. Someone over there is doing just a bang-up job on their social media. So look out for that. I encourage you to go. I encourage everyone to go. So I don't have too much to say about this episode, so let's get right into it. But before we do, I want to tell you a bit about Roast Scout. Head over to roastscout.com/y'allok and get $5 off your first order of premium small batch roasted whole bean coffee. Roast Scout has done a stellar job of finding some of the finest coffees from small roasters all over the map. Kansas, Texas, Colorado, Oregon, D.C., coffees and small businesses from around the country that are doing good work sent right to your friggin' mailbox. I've loved every single coffee that I've received in this program, and I eagerly await my May dispatch. So head on over to roastscout.com/y'allok for $5 off your first order. And without any more messing around, let's hear from Doug Sorocco. Okay. I'm going to have to wipe this off.
Yeah.
I started recording.
We know nothing.
I can't publish that. That'll get targeted.
Yeah.
It's Sorocco, right?
Yep, Sorocco.
All right. Sitting here with Doug Sorocco in the Dunlap Codding offices in downtown Oklahoma City. These offices are really cool, by the way.
Thanks.
I've been here 2 times, and it's an intellectual property firm. If I say anything that's like off base, help me out. But like, it's very creative. You can tell, like, I feel like I can tell that you guys place a high value on creativity and ingenuity and warmth, just because like everything seems original and it's nice here.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's, creativity and ingenuity, yes, but for us, a lot of it too is about fun. We spend a lot of our time here, and a lot of our friends and, colleagues and clients come here, and, if you don't have a good time and you don't feel welcome, you don't want to come back. So from just a day-to-day, where do you want to be standpoint, we want it to be fun and engaging. But then, from a professional standpoint, obviously we want people to come back and work with us.
Yeah.
And hopefully the space kind of reflects our kind of kooky, crazy, professional personalities as well.
Yeah. I think that comes off, I know I've met Jenny, who works here, and
right.
she's a fun person, and
more energy than any one person should have.
Yeah, she got a lot, some to spare. And you kind of get that sense. I've felt it was like everybody's real chill. Front desk, the reception, everybody just kind of like directs you where you need to go, and it's not real structured as a federal employee. That's typically what I get in my professional life when I'm not working at home.
Well, it's a little different for a law firm. The people we work with are, traditionally the most creative, imaginative, innovative, whatever kind of word you want to use. But they're also a little typically offbeat, right? And so, our kind of culture reflects that, those people that we work with, those creatives, we want them to feel comfortable. And quite frankly, we're lawyers, but we're also, undergraduates or other interests, or artists and engineers.
Right. So
we ourselves have a little twisted bent to our personalities. So, you put all that together and you say, well, let's have an office that looks, still serves an office purpose.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time can have a few things here and there that are fun and engaging. We're looking right here across. That's my favorite, where our storage room is entitled Secret.
The storage room, there's a room here called Stuff. There's a room, which I imagine is just a closet with stuff. there's a small breakout room called this one.
Yes, we have our this one, that one, the one, and then the other one.
So the fact that you guys spent money on signage to put that up on the outside of a room is really funny to me.
Well, and the secret room here is kind of funny because it's, we're sitting in this conference room and everybody sits in here for meetings and they look at that sign that says secret and it drives them crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
I've had more people say, what's in the secret room? I said, well, I can't tell you, it wouldn't be a secret. So.
How long have you guys been in this location?
Let's see. We moved here in February of 2013, so about 5.5 years now.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
where were the offices prior?
We were in the Alliance Bank building. So up there, there's Penn Square Mall and 50 Penn, and then I think it was the original Penn Bank building, right before they imploded back in the day.
Back in the 80s.
Back in the 80s. So it was kind of, we were on the 10th floor and had a great view of downtown and west and everything like that, but we weren't connected to anything, so it kind of we decided to come and move to the ground floor, so to speak.
Yeah, let's come back to that in a second because I'll get into that. Where you mentioned coming here, you grew up in Indiana?
I did. I'm as I learned from a thing the other day. I grew up in South Bend, Indiana, which is not a suburb of Chicago, as a local paper put it. And all my South Bend friends yelled at me, trying to whitewash that I was from Indiana. But yes.
I guess I'm not sure the proximity. So everybody knows South Bend has Notre Dame.
Correct.
What else?
It's 90 miles east of Chicago.
So it is really close.
Yeah, it's really close. I mean, there's a train. You jump on the train, and 2 hours later, you're downtown Chicago. It's just right up there on the northern border of Indiana, almost to Michigan. So it's almost smack dab in the middle of Indiana up there. So, but it's for most part, it's known for Notre Dame and the university.
Where'd you go to school? Undergrad, I
went to Butler University in Indianapolis.
Okay.
Which, everybody knows
their basketball
team, and then the Hoosiers. They played in the Butler Fieldhouse, the movie Hoosiers, the final state championship game.
All right.
A little small, 3,500 student.
Here's the deal. I told myself before this interview, knowing you're from Indiana, I told myself I'm not going to mention basketball at all because I'm sure he hears it all the time. Some sort of Gene Hackman reference or something like that.
Of course, well, basketball. I mean, Indiana's basketball country.
It is.
It took me a while to get used to the Friday night football frenzies here in Oklahoma when I moved.
Yeah. I've found myself over time because of like CTE and all the injuries and stuff. I've kind of like fallen out of love with that a little bit,
right?
And I'm like really trying to stress other things for my kids because
fortunately, I haven't had to deal with it with my son. He's not a team sport guy, so right now we're just trying to keep him from drowning while he's kayaking and doing that sports down on the river.
Oh, that's cooler anyway.
Yeah.
That's so much better anyway.
Yeah, he thinks so. He's grew his hair out this summer and it's got a little man bun, so he thinks.
Oh, really?
Yes, he's doing the counterculture kind of kayaker.
I would dig that
lifestyle. Yeah.
If I could have a haircut, I think I would fully embrace the man bun. Yeah. At this point,
we're just kind of shaking our head and taunting Grandma with pictures. So
yeah, grandmas love that. And then, so at what point when you were there at Butler, did you always want to go into law?
No, I had no idea. So I was there to be a biochemist. So my undergraduate degree is in chemistry with kind of an emphasis or interest in biochemistry. Yeah. And so I was going to go on and get my PhD in chemistry or, something in chemistry. And I had a federal-funded summer project at Northwestern in Chicago.
Okay.
And this was back in the buildings. They were built probably World War II. They had 8 sub-basements because of all the research that was going on. And literally there were people that lived on that 8th subfloor that never saw the light of day.
Oh, like mole people.
Mole people. Oh, yeah. And and I figured out that just wasn't what I was interested in doing.
Right.
And so then I was kind of screwed. And the chemistry department wasn't happy with me. I was I think their their top scholarship that year for my incoming class.
Wow.
And so fortunately, my advisor was a little bit, went to his own path anyway, and kind of said, hey, you liked this public policy class in chemistry you took.
Okay.
Why don't you go take some poli-sci courses and see if that's something you'd be interested in?
Yeah.
And, I took a couple poli-sci courses and got, yelled at for my writing being like a chemist rather than a poli-sci person. But it kind of took. So, for me, it was more interesting to kind of work with people and problems and being a solver or a facilitator of solutions rather than, being that researcher and, trying to come up with new things and finding how to do it.
That's what college should do.
It should. I mean,
really facilitate.
Yeah, I had absolutely no idea. I mean, it's not. No one in my family's a lawyer. No, I'm kind of the black sheep for being a lawyer, I guess.
Yeah.
But it kind of. It was one of those times where you just kind of you wake up and say, I really don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Love chemistry, love science and everything techie and geeky and stuff like that. But that's not what I want to do with my life.
Well, so if that pivot happened post graduation, or
no, it happened while it was probably my summer after my junior year.
But you were far enough along. You're like, I'll finish chemistry. I
finish
got these
it.
Poli-sci electives.
Yeah, I'll see if I can. What do I do? And really coming out of it, I wanted to continue using the science. I mean, I love science and think creativity kind of things and people who do it. And so you're like, well, what do I do with a chemistry degree if I'm not going to be a chemist?
Right.
And so, you're thinking about law school or graduate school or med school, and I don't like blood, so it wasn't going to happen in med school.
Right.
That's kind of a prerequisite, I think.
I think so.
And so, I look at law school and I say, well, if you're going to use a science background, what are you going to do? And so it's either environmental type law or technology law. And the problem is most of the jobs coming out in environmental law at the time were defending, polluters and
corporate lawyers,
right? Folks that I just couldn't see myself, working with, at the time because that wasn't my interest.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, let's look into technology. Let's see what that where that's going to lead. And at the time, technology lawyers were looked at the geeky.
What era were we talking here?
Probably, early 90s.
Oh, okay.
And so you were.
Oh man, that's pre-internet.
Oh yes. Okay. I was AOL, all the way through law school. And I think probably my last year of law school is when we started using, the internet for.
Actually having like .edu addresses and
yes,
stuff.
and a Mosaic browser
yeah,
and,
look at that.
like figuring this out. So. Yeah.
Man, you got in on the ground floor then.
Yeah, it was kind of fun, trying to balance those, what was coming at us and what was happening. And, everybody was scared about the Y2K kind of stuff. So that was a big deal. Lots of computer, IT kind of contracting, was the hot area. And then those of us who were kind of interested in the intellectual property, we were kind of the geeky. Yeah. We weren't real lawyers, as it was put to me once, because we were just kind of paper pushing assets and things of that nature.
Right. Where'd you go to law school?
I started at the University of Dayton, was there for 2 years, Dayton, Ohio. And then I finished up at Northwestern in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
So
really cool.
That's kind of how, I kind of was looking for a job in the Chicago area. And the firm that I was interviewing with said, well, we don't usually hire people from outside Chicago for the summer because we want them to work through the year.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'll switch schools. If you hire me. Well, they hired me. And the thing, the what people don't know is usually law schools won't let you leave your third year.
Yeah.
Because it's just gravy for them, right? You're taking electives. It's almost adjunct professors. You know, they're making money off of you. So I had to talk Dayton into letting me transfer.
Wow.
And the deal I struck with them, because they were, a smaller regional school, was that I had to apply to all the law schools in Chicago and go to the best school that I got into for my third year. so that they could then say that their students could do just as well as anybody else.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I found out the week before school started that Northwestern accepted me, and
Right.
next thing I know, I'm at Northwestern and
That's crazy.
tripling my tuition and everything else.
But at least it was only for 1 year, though.
It was 1 year, and it was a good experience. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was, different. People you're exposed there to, a different level of professors and adjuncts and people who come in and speak. So it was a fun year.
Cool. You're actually the second IP attorney we've had on the show, and I also think that other one got her law degree from Northwestern as well. Shoni Hickson, who's she's grew up in Southside, went to school with me, and then she ended up going to Stanford for undergrad. Did IP stuff for a bit, and she actually works for the university now.
Okay,
but
that'd be a cool gig.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think she digs it, and I can't remember the name of the firms that she worked for, but
sure.
One of them was a big one that had offices in like Dallas, Chicago, and
kind of all over the
Silicon
place.
Valley as well.
And that's usually what happens with IP firms and tech firms, is you end up having multiple locations. You kind of are situated around where the tech communities are, your clients happen to be. So
right. So which brings us to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Why? And we talked off mic how you guys Dunlap Codding has an office in Chicago.
Right.
But HQ is here,
correct,
in Oklahoma City. So, what's up with that? Or is there a condensed history of it?
Well, the firm's almost 70 years old. It was started in the 50s by Mr. Dunlap, who was the first private practice patent attorney in the state of Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And I joined. My wife was offered a position, graduate school at Oklahoma State.
Okay.
And so that's how we moved. I thought, well, if we're going to end up together, which it looked like it was happening at the time, we better be closer than 13 hours.
What were your initial thoughts prior to coming to Oklahoma? I mean, you're from Indiana, so it's like we're quote unquote flyover states.
We're flyover states.
But you also grew up in Chicago, which is a major metropolitan area.
Sure, and that's as soon as you turn 16, you're taking the train up to Chicago or driving. I mean, that's kind of the pull of where you're at. It's a very with Gary and the lake. I mean, it's a very industrial. But then you've got these beautiful the beaches and the dunes.
Right.
So it's kind of a unique. So I kind of grew up in a smaller town on the the farmer side of that town. So I was kind of used to big cornfields and green and not a ton of people. And it's funny because my first impression of Oklahoma is I actually came down with a friend a few years before we moved here for a wedding. Her roommate was getting married.
Oh, okay.
Up in Ponca City. And
wow.
Yeah. And so we drove down probably a couple of days early, thought, well, we'll stay in Stillwater. It's a Big 12 city. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Kind of like Bloomington or Ann Arbor, Big 10 towns. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll go out.
Yeah.
So we rolled into Stillwater in early August.
Ooh.
And we're surprised, 1990 probably. There wasn't a whole lot to do.
No.
Everything was brown and dry.
Yeah, sure.
And brittle. And and I remember driving out. I mean, I think we literally said, who in God's name would ever live here?
Right.
And then 6 years later, I'm moving to Oklahoma.
That's how it works, man.
You get sucked in. And, it was kind of fun because we were living, I was living at the time in downtown Chicago, had a loft, all that kind of cool. It was a rom-com kind of,
that's the best,
kind of thing. And we moved to Guthrie.
Oh, gosh.
Because it split our drive, right? My wife was going to Stillwater.
Right.
I came down here.
Yeah.
And so, like I like to say, is that was 1996 Guthrie. It wasn't, kind of hipster,
right.
fun.
It's kind of, exactly. They
kind
have
of
festivals
cool
now.
Yeah, they have festivals and music. And so it was a lot of fun. Not only were we in Oklahoma where, the terrain was different, the culture was a little different, but we were in this small town that everybody knew that we were from someplace else.
Right.
And so we became kind of, not the focus of some folks, but certainly we were known. You have lots of Guthrie stories, and we kind of embraced it. And I joined the Masons, and kind of met all the people, and it was we had a really lovely time. But it was also kind of funny. We worked on a little bungalow there, and one day I left the box knife open in my back pocket. Oh. And kind of sat down and kind of sliced the cheek up a little bit, and went over to a little surgery center to get some stitches. Yeah. And, so it's embarrassing enough to have to go in and say, hey,
I need stitches in my butt.
I need stitches in my butt. And so that happens. And that Saturday, Monday morning, there was a coffee shop downtown that everybody would go to. I'd stop and get coffee. And, I walk in, and everybody, all the old guys kind of yell out, hey, Doug, how's your butt? And using a different word. And I'm like, does HIPAA not apply? I'm like, how do you guys know about this? And they're like, well, we kind of talked about it at church at, coffee hour and stuff like that. And they were all laughing that the Yankee cut his butt. And, so it was a lot of fun.
I'm not Yankee, guys. I'm from the Midwest. Yeah. Yankees are further east.
Yeah, no, I'm a Yankee. So
that's so funny, dude.
Yeah, it's our house, we bought a 100-year-old house over by the Plaza District, in fact, over in 99. And we're the second owners, and so the house was full of the original owners' kind of stuff. And
Are you serious?
Yeah. And so they just kind of left a lot of it. And one of the drawers was all these pamphlets of daughters of like the Confederacy, and I thought this woman who was clearly Southern kind of oriented, that she just must be unhappy that a group of Yankee carpetbaggers came in and bought her house. And in fact, we found her false teeth behind the stove.
They really did leave a lot of stuff.
They did leave a lot of stuff. And so we've had them sitting on our kind of the windowsill over the sink. They kind of smile. Annabelle smiles at us.
Oh, that's really nice.
So we figured it keeps the bad juju away.
It's really nice. And weird.
And weird. You're going to have a little bit of weird, right?
I think so. What does your clientele look like?
So
now,
I mean, it's kind of exciting, and that's one of the weird things is you wouldn't think a firm of our size only specializing in that kind of law would kind of exist in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And as we can quibble over the numbers, but on average, about 85% of our revenue actually comes from outside a 500-mile region.
Okay.
From Oklahoma City.
Okay.
So, and we work with lots of people here, but probably the numbers of clients, just sheer numbers are local, right?
Yeah.
Musicians and artists and innovators and inventors and stuff.
Smaller scale.
We work with the universities here and some of the bigger companies. But, really when we look at revenue, it's driven by, companies outside.
Interesting.
The Oklahoma. So we work a couple of folks that I could name. We work with Nestle out of Switzerland, or Johnson & Johnson, or Siemens, and, companies like that have realized that we can do just as good a quality work here and be at a lower cost because of our things in Oklahoma cost less, right?
Right, absolutely.
And, we're not having to put together very expensive real estate and offices and,
wow,
things. So.
That's interesting. On a similar note, one of the people that I'm talking to for this season is Natalie Kent, the designer with Nominee up in Edmond.
Yeah.
She's the creative director, I believe.
Right.
But anyway, I was looking at their portfolio of products, and it's very similar. So that it's not just Oklahoma stuff at all. It's very national and international brands are coming to them and,
of course,
and wanting their services. And
it's one of the it's kind of tongue in cheek. I like to say that the economic downturn was good for us. I mean, we expanded our business because firms and companies and folks were willing to look to the flyover states to save.
Right.
They were in a position where they had to cut budgets.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, one of the easiest ways to do that is find people who can do quality of work in lower cost centers.
Yeah.
And so we kind of took advantage of that. And
Sure.
I spent a lot of time running around the world, business development wise, for a bit, which was
So
fun.
you were the business development
I was
guy.
the business, yeah. I mean, everybody does it, but I seem to like to run around.
Right, sure.
And so it was a lot of fun. But, we kind of just met people along the way that would give us an opportunity.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's kind of fun about being from Oklahoma, especially overseas, is people don't really know a lot about Oklahoma.
No.
It's still kind of a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time I can get an appointment with people overseas because I just have to say, hey, my name's Doug. I'm from Oklahoma. I'd like to come talk to you. And they're like, oh, I've never talked to anybody from Oklahoma.
Yeah, exactly.
What are they going to show up at? Am I going to be in Pioneer gear?
Right.
Am I going to have a gun on my side or something?
Well, 50-50.
Yeah,
there.
you never know. But it's that advantage I think that we have because there is a little mystery, a little
That's
mystique.
interesting. Yeah, as you say that, it made me think, and I don't know if I've told this story before, but I went to Argentina in 2005. And I was across the street at this apartment, or I was living in this apartment at the time. Went across the street and to a dry cleaner or something like that. And I was having this conversation in broken Spanish where I basically told him yeah, I'm from Oklahoma. Have you ever heard of it? And he said, and this is 2005. And he said, yeah, Timothy McVeigh. And I was just like, oh God,
Yeah, that's
no.
great.
And then so I went back a couple years later. Someone in Argentina. No, it was actually someone. I was in Washington, D.C. I was getting on an elevator, and I was talking to this pilot from Germany. And I said, I'm from Oklahoma. Have you ever heard of it? And he said, yeah. Oh, the Thunder there. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah,
That
that's
kinda
a
shows
little.
how.
I can't remember. It was it was like 2 or 3 years into the Thunder, being here, and I was in Amsterdam, and we were walking around after dinner, and I look in front of me, and there's somebody wearing a Thunder T-shirt.
Really?
And I'm like, oh, it must be someone from Oklahoma. I mean,
Right, sure.
So I tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, and no, it was someone from the Netherlands.
Wow.
They were just a fan of the Thunder, and
That's amazing.
It was kind of nice. Like you said, typically you heard, people McVeigh or bombing,
Tornadoes
or
something terrible.
Right. And so, it kind of putting all that together, but it's also, there's that, what I would see here a lot is, Pioneer, the West, or,
Right. Yes.
and so I've started trying to take, books on the Tallgrass Prairie or, some of the other things that are uniquely ours with me and kind of leaving them with people. So
I like that idea.
So they kind of get a sense of, this is a kind of a beautiful state in a very unique way.
Yeah, I like that idea. I hadn't quite thought of that yet.
It's a neat calling card to kind of leave. It's something that I could give you a brochure that's going to look like 50 other brochures right at law firms. We're all we all huddle together. But if I can leave you something you haven't seen before, that maybe you're going to take home and show your kids or your spouse or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah,
that's
cool. Let's talk about community a little bit.
Okay.
So this seems to be a thing, and I'm just picking up on a few ideas. 1996, you're in Guthrie to integrate yourself in the community. You joined the Masons.
I know it's driving my son crazy because I won't tell him any of the secrets.
Yeah, well,
it's all
it's locked in that room.
It's in the secret room.
There's you serve on multiple committees and boards, whether or not that's your ability to say yes or to say no to things, who knows. But also on May 24th of this year, where we met, you gave a talk called Giving It Away for Free, which has to do with, you mentioned coming from the old location in the bank building to here to be on the ground level and get involved with stuff. So talk to me a little bit about your vision of what it is to be a part of a community and I guess why is it important as well? Do you consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert?
It's always an interesting question, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the way I've always put it is I'm an extroverted introvert.
Okay.
So, good lawyer answer, right? It's a maybe, possibly, no definitive answer.
Yeah.
I said this in a group the other day. I said, I'd probably be extremely happy being a hermit that just sat and read, for a couple years in a cave somewhere, kind of that type thing. And no one believed me. But, putting it together from a community standpoint, I grew up, in a pretty close-knit, family, living in an area of town that everybody knew everybody else. My family had been there for a long time, not because and knew our name, not because we were wealthy or anything like that. I come from a very modest background, but just because there were so many of them on my Italian family side,
Right.
Just lots of Soroccos, aunts and uncles and cousins. And so you kind of come from that community, right, where you can't really do anything without it being known. And so it kind of forces you to realize you're working within, some kind of boundaries, right?
Right.
That you're part of something.
Absolutely.
Moving to Guthrie, you're definitely a part of something. I mean, you knew who your neighbors were. They knew who you were. And then when we moved down to Oklahoma City and we moved over by the Plaza District, that was a very different area in 1999.
Yeah. Was it even called the Plaza District then?
Well, the Plaza was there. It was,
Okay.
it's always kind of been the Plaza District, but it was scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had lots of random people that would show up, and you didn't really ride a bike or walk around at night. But the people there kind of came together. When we first moved there, we had kind of the hillbilly house across from us that had the
a few cars in the driveway,
couch and an old refrigerator on the porch and the old guy, and so you get kind of in your mind what you think they're going to be like. And we had some drywall and lumber delivered, and I wasn't there, and it started to rain, and that person came over, the guy that lived there came over, and he threw a tarp over everything.
Oh.
Hadn't met him yet. It took us 6 months to get the house livable, after we bought it. And, it really kind of reminds you or strikes you in the face that, God, I really can't judge this person. They just did me a really big favor without knowing me.
Saved you a few $100s.
Saved me a few $100, but, just kind of really made me realize, hey, we're all here together and we're all kind of working together, whether it's whatever we're doing. And, I moved down here the year after the bombing. Mm-hmm. And so for me as an outsider seeing it, it affects me. You can't imagine the impact that has on the people that went through that here and the psyche and everything. But, as an outsider, I also kind of saw that what that did in my eyes to the community, which everybody kind of seemed to come together, rally together and said, we're going to make things better.
Yeah.
And that really, I know things happened before that, but that to me as an outsider, then somebody joining the community and seeing people say, we're going to change this, we're going to move together collectively and in a consensus building kind of way.
Yeah.
It was kind of a great lesson.
Yeah.
In what can be done here in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
In Oklahoma City, certainly.
Yeah, and I think there's something about, I'm kind of in that mode right now at 35 of just like thinking a lot more about community, because I've moved around. I was telling you off mic, I've been to Texas and then moved around to Tulsa, and then now we're back in Oklahoma City, and I've been able to see a lot of the changes that have happened here and be very intentional about wanting to get involved and like build things in the way that my wife and I want to be a part of,
I think intentionality is a good way to put it, is that, there are people here of extreme goodwill doing lots of neat things all over the place. Yeah. Whatever you're interested in, you can plug in someplace.
For sure.
And it's just being intentional about that. And, I haven't always been intentional. I've kind of here and there and, said yes to different things. Mm-hmm. But that's, the more involved that I'm in things, the more it seems to kind of become an intentional act of this is where I want to make a difference, or this is how, I want to impact the community around me. And that's a big difference, I think, in when I first started versus now. I've got 13 years on you, so.
I was talking to Meredith Van Zant about, her yoga businesses.
Right.
And, the first yoga business that she opened was in D.C. That was like her first foray into it. And then she opened up the 405 Yoga in Oklahoma City after that. And she was talking about being two entirely different markets. The D.C. market for yoga was completely saturated.
Right.
For some reason, she entered it anyway. And had some success. And in Oklahoma City, it was the exact opposite, where it was not a crowded space whatsoever. And it's still not that saturated of a market. But as you were talking, it got me to thinking about the quote unquote market for being involved in a community, whatever it is that you want to do. Like, it exists, but it's probably not so overwhelmingly saturated that if you want to get involved in independent film, you can do it.
You can make a difference.
That exists, and you can make a difference.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not one of many. You're one of maybe a handful, right? I mean, and you can take it which way you want to go, whether it's music or independent film or art or social justice or, whatever it happens to be here. There's a maybe playing field's not the right metaphor, but there's space.
Right.
And there are people of goodwill. That's what makes a difference, is that, if you have an idea, people here seem to be willing to say, okay, let's try it.
Yeah.
I said the other day in regard to a newspaper story, I said, the space was kind of like, well, what the hell, let's give it a try,
Yeah.
And I've had that repeated back to me a bunch, but never say that again. But it's kind of true that there's still that, to me, that pioneering spirit, that ability to, say, okay, I want to do something that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And people say, okay, let's see where it goes.
Give it a go.
Let's give it a go. And there might not be money right away, but there's going to be support. There's going to be willing people to join you.
Right.
And, kind of like we were doing at lunch and talking, is the way it works here is, hey, I know 5 people that will probably be interested. Why don't you go talk to those 5 people, and those people will give you 5 more. I mean,
yeah.
And that's how it works here. It's
absolutely.
Kind of, people pass along each other to.
Yeah, in a way, I don't know if it's because of just like growing up here or whatever, but to me, I interpret that as, well, it works because it's supposed to work that way. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but
it doesn't work that way other places.
It's supposed to. So let's talk about your community space here. Mm-hmm. So the talk you gave, giving it away for free, the true value of 5,475 hours?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did do the math. So
okay, what is that about?
So the number is, it's just, me being a simpleton of saying from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning times 365. That's how many hours this conference room we're in theoretically sits empty. Mm-hmm. It has no purpose. It doesn't do anything, right?
Okay.
Or the conference room across from us, or the alleyway, or, you know what I mean? There's all these spaces that just sit empty.
Right.
Doing nothing. There's no constructive purpose for them.
Right.
And that just bothers me. I like things to have a purpose, right? I have a little OCD that way. And so for us, it became, we had the space that kind of serendipitously we put together, when my partners weren't looking, when we put the building together. And it bothered me because one of my partners said, oh, this is cool. This is great. We're going to use it 1% of the time.
Right.
Because, we're working, it's hot, it's raining, all of that. And that bothered me. So I thought, well, okay, how do we make it useful. And I said, well, let's give it to people. Let's let people use it. Mm-hmm. And it was that's just kind of the silly little idea of, hey, let's open the doors, and the rest of it is kind of the way we are anyway. We treat people like they're a guest here, rather than transactional. You're giving me money, I'm doing something. So it's like, well, how do we extend that same kind of ethos or feeling?
And who's since it's a free space, obviously it's not a city park. You have to schedule it ahead of time. But who schedules it? Like, who uses the space?
So who uses the space? Everybody. I spoke at a Rotary group the other day, and I started out by saying, who's been here?
The Rotarians are great, aren't they?
Oh, they are. Yeah. They're such a fun-loving group. But I said, how many people have been here? And 90% of the people had, raised their hand.
Really?
Because they're also a plugged-in group. And
yes.
And I'm not saying that they've been here, as bragging or anything. It's just that's the diversity of people that have been here. It's been nonprofits to music to, I sometimes think we've had every other disease and condition here than the Children's Hospital or HSC. And the way it works is people just submit a request, and if we've got it open and available, we let them use it.
Yeah.
And we kind of found out by accident that Julie Oslin, our lead litigation paralegal, must have been an event planner, hostess or something in a prior life.
Nice.
Because she has a knack for it. She just, she has a empathy and compassion for people in the community that just kind of shines through.
Yeah, I was really, I was struck because as a part of your 5-minute Ignite presentation, you told the story of a woman. They had a family reunion here, and she, she was thankful that you guys could host the space because it couldn't have been done where she lived, and she just lived in a rough part of town. And,
they couldn't be outside. They couldn't, they were worried about the kids' safety, and all of that. So it was, that was one of those times where I walked back to my office and you just kind of, all right, well,
close the door.
Yeah, close the door, and I'm not going to do any more work.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home and hug my kids.
And so do they do it is stuff going on just at any time, at that outdoor space?
Yeah, and it's, we've had to change it a little bit. So for any community group, and we define community pretty broad,
right?
It's free.
Okay.
For a private party or something, we do, for some reason, Saturday mornings is baby shower time.
Oh, interesting.
It's $20 an hour.
Oh, okay.
And that money just goes to the person who babysits. We have a college girl and a couple of other people that are here to watch over things and help, more to help than anything else.
Yeah.
And that's just because about 18 months into the process, my staff rebelled and said, we can't give any more nights and weekends, volunteering for it. But, that we thought that we were setting that price low enough that for private groups that it just pays for the.
It's still basically free.
Yeah. I mean, they get
for those types of
they
things.
get the coffee. They use the pop machine. They can,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's truly just paying the person who's sitting here and watching things.
Yeah. Oh man.
And for a college student, it's a great job. So.
Yeah.
Because she can do her homework.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if it's a baby shower, then they should be.
It's not
on top of things. It shouldn't get too crazy.
It doesn't get too crazy. And then for any community events, we take, we don't charge anything.
Okay.
And on average, we are now at, we're having somewhere between 70 and 80 events happening a month.
Holy cow.
And so people use this conference room. They use the other conference room. They use the community space.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So Monday, the State Arts Council was doing their entire staff was doing a retreat in one room, in the main room.
Yeah.
And in a conference room, we had the State Film and Music Office doing some meetings.
Wow.
And so it, as I said, the entire creative wing of the state of Oklahoma was in one location, and it was going to be scary if they, like, you know, like the Sharks and the Jets getting together in the hallway.
So, yeah, it would be so much snapping in one place.
Yeah, just one thing, and dancing. And so we've estimated we've had about 50,000 people come through in 5 years.
Wow.
And among the different events and parties and...
You know what I like about that is just that, you know, here you are, a firm representing creatives in the creative space, whether or not, you know, that's art or whatever. You know, I define creative, I guess, creative and art fairly broadly, but I mean, it shows that not only do you support them vocationally, but it creates a space where creative things are allowed to happen.
Correct.
And I think that's just, I don't know. I mean, did you guys, to come to that decision, did you guys like do a lot of like work and introspection of like finding out why we do things? You know, Simon Sinek has that book of Start With Why.
Yeah, start with why.
Like follow your why and all that jazz.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, did it just happen, or were you?
It just happened. I mean, truly that quote of "What the hell? Let's try it." I mean that was kind of the philosophy. I'd love to say that we had this well drawn out business plan, and no.
Yeah.
It just kind of started, and it was kind of funny because when we put it out there that we were going to let anybody use the space, people didn't believe us.
Sure.
Oh, there's a catch.
You're lawyers. After
we're a
all.
lawyer. We're evil. Yeah, we're the evil lawyers. As my Ignite talk started. Of course, we're out to screw people or do something, right?
Sure.
And so it really made us. At that point in time, I'm like, well, I'm giving it away free, but I'm going to make you take it. You're going to do it. So we were a little more active at the beginning to get people, in and try it. And that was mostly just reaching out to nonprofits and saying, hey, hold your fundraiser here. You don't have any expense. There's no, you can raise money.
Wow.
And what's come with most of that is by doing that, we're now in many cases help facilitate.
Mm-hmm.
So Julie is helping people get caterers or people donating,
right.
the alcohol for an event or, whatever. I mean, if you're seeing right now, they're, walking around with a couple people that are going to use the space.
That's what it looks like. That's what I was thinking.
Julie is showing people around of, kind of gave them something to drink and then talking to them about, how the space can be used and what they can do. So,
yeah, it's so hospitable.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And it's also why my waste is, there's a lot of, baby shower cake that's left over on the weekends. I work a lot of Saturdays because it's quiet and there's always cake.
You know what? When we had our post-Ignite happy hour here, someone had procured. I brought some hummus and pita from Zoe's, which I think you took to.
Yeah.
And then someone brought that big bread bowl with the spinach artichoke dip.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. You took those.
I took the whole thing. And I ate the whole thing too.
I think you were pretty much eating it when we were having the get together. That was your jam.
Yeah, I don't know why. But I ended up eating the whole bread bowl, everything. My wife was like, "What are you doing?"
That's great.
Free spinach artichoke dip.
That's kind of it's funny. So there's always cake, there's always cookies and stuff like that. The fun thing too is there's always booze.
Yeah.
Because people leave their beer and behind because they're like, oh, they can use it.
Yeah.
So if somebody walked in on an average day and opened one of the cabinets, they'd think we were a bunch of flushes and that was really when we first started. It was the hard thing because of the liquor laws in Oklahoma are so odd.
Yeah.
That when we were doing, we put together a music event. So once a month we had local bands playing out there. And it was free and a couple, food trucks. And we started out, just giving beer away,
Oh, yeah.
And then we learned that's not a good idea.
Okay.
And so then we started charging $2 a beer, for it. And we got the permits and everything. But, trying to get that in place was just an absolute nightmare. And in fact, we had, I don't remember what group it was that came out to actually visit us because we were we were literally turning in tax receipts for the $2 beers that we were selling and everything.
Yeah.
And they came out because they couldn't believe we were selling that little of beer. And I'm like, well, we're doing it for 3 hours one night a month.
Yeah.
And they got mad at us.
Oh my gosh.
So it's funny. Not only has the space, we've met everybody, and that's just been a tremendous. We've gone through these experiences that we now help people kind of navigate those issues. That they come in here, and the first thing we say, well, do you have your event permit? Do you people don't know what that process happens to be.
I don't. It's amazing. Yeah, you guys became the unexpected subject matter experts on on stuff you didn't even want to be.
We didn't want to be. We now know how to close the streets. We know,
Wow.
If you want to put a circus tent and have 500 of your friends here, we know how to do that.
Wow.
So it's been kind of, as Julie says, who does all of our stuff, she has a second life moonlighting as a wedding and event coordinator. So.
Yeah. Totally. You guys beefed up her resume.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it.
Yeah, Now, if other firms are interested in doing it, I've got to worry about it.
Exactly. Well, hey, I want to be respectful of your time here. Final 5 questions.
Okay.
And
Lightning round.
If you've got no answer, that's fine too.
Okay.
What's your morning routine like?
I'm not a morning person.
Okay.
And having an old house means we have one bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
So I am the
How many kids?
2 kids. My wife is a federal employee, so she has a certain time frames. Mm-hmm. So I am the kid wrangler in the morning, half awake, making sure they're clothed and dressed, and I leave the house last.
Oh, nice. Do you have an evening routine?
It varies. I'm, almost every, now with older, kids who are hitting that 6 to 12 range, we're either running them to places or I've got an after-work meeting for some nonprofit, but I'm a reader, so
okay.
I fall asleep reading.
This is a good segue.
Yeah?
What's your favorite book?
My favorite book? Oh, now that's not fair.
If you have to give me 3...
Well, I'll give you 2. So my favorite fiction is The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, interesting.
I'm a adventure kind of redemption and revenge.
Is that Hugo? No. It's not.
Andre Dumas.
Okay.
Or Alexander Dumas. And then my favorite nonfiction is a book called Predictably Irrational. And it's Dan Ariely. Uh-huh. And he's a sociologist, psychologist. And his thing is that as humans, we act irrational in all of our decision making, but it's predictable. And so it's a fascinating book to read and very easy to approach.
So that sounds like an interesting book from a sociologist, because it definitely sounds like behavioral economics, which ultimately
very much
economics is about decision making, and there's a lot of sociology economics crossover.
Oh yeah, and he's written other books like The Upside of Lying, and which I've
heard of that one.
Yeah,
actually.
Which I'm working through right now, and it's fascinating because he quantifies where we lie, everybody does it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to check those out.
He's a phenomenal writer.
Who's your favorite musical artist?
So I am my favorite musical artist. Right now it's St. Paul and the Broken Bones.
Yeah.
So I'm a blues guy. So I grew up turning 16 and going and hiding out in the Southside Chicago blues clubs.
That's pretty cool.
So Taj Mahal and all the kind of Sonny Blue Band and all the great kind of Chicago blues artists.
Yeah,
that's my soundtrack. Is an old blues kind of
nice
situation. And I worked as a DJ and at a radio station, so I have lots of blues and old R&B kind of records.
So whenever Sunday afternoons on KGOU roll around, or Saturday afternoons on KGOU roll around, you're the guy that they're playing that music.
Yes, I am one of 5. And I'm either there or over a trolley stop, or I like to drive on the back roads, and Oklahomans love selling old LPs to junk stores. So
Oh,
I now have every Johnny Cash album and
wow,
working my way through. So
I had no idea you were that voracious.
I'm a vinyl snob. Yeah.
Nice. What's your the last question.
Yep.
What's your favorite spot in Oklahoma? Could be a business, could be nature, could be anything.
My favorite spot in Oklahoma. That's a tough one because I'm going to make 99% of the state ornery.
Not really. So I was talking to Rabbi Vered Harris, and I asked her that question, and she's like, "Can I say my house?" And then Representative, and I said, "You can," and she said her house and Lake Arcadia. Mickey Dollins, the representative from Southside.
Right.
He said, I got a pool in my backyard, like an inflatable pool, which is my favorite spot right now. Other than that, I would say the Fassler Hall area.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
that's a good one.
So there's all sorts of answers.
Mine's a record store or a junk store. Right now I've got a hammock in my back. If we're going to go that route, I have a hammock that I hang out, and then I've got I hesitate saying a man cave, but we have a mother-in-law suite above our garage.
Oh, okay.
And so that has become kind of my space. And I went to art school as well as an undergraduate. So I like to kind of hang out there, and it's quiet, and, me and the dog kind of play records and
do whatever.
You're
into woodworking, right?
Yeah. So I've got a little shop below that. So.
Okay.
So it's kind of, I'm one of these people, apparently I have ADD for extracurricular activities. So it kind of has to run around to different things here and there.
So that's how it manifests. Well, that's cool, though. I mean, yeah.
Yep. So you can come over and, maybe chop off a finger or two, and then we can photograph it and listen to records.
Hey, that sounds like a good time. Well, on that note, Doug Sorocco, thanks so much for having me here.
No problem. It's been
a
lot of fun. Thanks.
Are we watching a movie?
No, I'm going to watch Ken Burns.
It's not really good.
You don't think Ken Burns is good?
I don't want to watch Ken Burns. You can't watch Ken Burns.
All right, you heard it, folks. Doug invited me over to his house to play with power tools and blades and drink, and whatever happens, happens. Given that he's a lawyer, I'll probably have to sign something just to, absolve him of my own stupidity. But we'll see how that goes. Take it one thing at a time, right? So I appreciate you listening. Again, check out the Ignite OKC Facebook page. Check out the Y'all OK Facebook page. Check out Dunlap Codding. Rent their space. It's truly a unique, creative, amazing space to go, and I'm so lucky I actually get to spend a lot of time there now. Head over to roastscout.com/y'allok. Get $5 off your caffeine addiction, because you got one. So you might as well like get the nicest stuff that you can get. I don't know, that gets into some murky territory when it comes to addictions. This is it. This is the last official episode of this season 2. What does season 3 hold? I'm not sure, but check out the podcast feed. Subscribe to the show, because there will be a special episode coming out. And that's it. So appreciate you listening. Appreciate you giving the time. And until next time, don't be a stranger.